So I've recently come back to Australia after spending fall and the beginning of winter over in Atlanta, Georgia. It's summertime here, it's Christmas time, and so I guess I've gone through quite a drastic seasonal change in respect to the type of clothes I'm wearing. And I find that season changes facilitates a period of body dysmorphia for me, where you kind of like you have to grapple with what's happened in the prior season, and I guess it's probably more pronounced if you're going from like a cold climate to a warm climate, because when it's cold, you're more likely to be a bit huskier, keep you warm in those long, cold, lonely nights. Yeah, and then you come back where somewhere where it's warm, or even just the anticipation. I was like, fuck, I'm gonna have to have my shirt off in public in a couple of weeks, so starve yourself for a couple of meals. And then you just eat shit on the airplane and get bloated and yeah, so anyway, kind of negates any type of extra effort at the gym. And you look bloated and fat when you arrive in the warmer climate on your other days. But regardless, I've guess I've been kind of tapping into my low level autism in the last year or so by investigating the men's fashion looks maxing communities on Reddit. Like many things, it starts off as some very kind of light investigative journalism where you're like, well, I wonder what's going on over here then. What are these dickheads up to? Um, could this be useful in any capacity for me? And from there, you kind of the hate watch or the hate listen or the hate read somehow becomes enjoyable. You do start applying it to your own life and finding little hacks and solutions to try and get an edge. And I think there are certain principles a man can apply in respect to his fashion choices, his grooming, the way he carries himself in the world, that will help him become more attractive, pretty much objectively. There is nuance in terms of things dudes prefer, as opposed to things gals will prefer. Dudes are like, nah, don't shave your beard, it looks sick. Whereas most women are like, yeah, shave your beard. And so there's like nuance there, but generally there's some kind of established principles in respect to looking good. And I've started, and that's a whole kind of separate topic in respect to like the the artists assemble nature of Reddit, whether that's creating like a fucking best practices for every single thing on the earth. You can second guess every decision you could possibly make because there are people who are fucking kicking the tires and testing things and sharing their findings on Reddit across everything. But let's just assume that there's things that you can do to make yourself look more attractive. And let's say that you're a halfway decent looking guy already. You do a few things to make yourself look more attractive. And let's say that it works out to be you push yourself on most days to be 6.5 out of 10. On the very best days where things are really clicking, a 7 out of 10. But you know what's strange? In this kind of phenomenon I've noticed that there are certain men who are objectively disgusting, yet they carry like a sex appeal. And yes, I am essentially talking about French men here. That's the archetype pretty much in terms of like the Serge Gainsbourg, the kind of disheveled little rat of a man. Or it could go the other way, kind of like a big husky type of fellow with man tits. And yet somehow they're edging you, the guy who's kind of eating clean, getting the tips on Reddit, thinking about wardrobe choices. You on your best day, you're a 7 out of 10, which I think a lot of guys are around the middle of the mark. And so if you really, those guys really kind of work on what they can, and even if you lose your hair or it goes gray, you can like take action to make it look good. You can push yourself up a few, 5, 10, 15, 20 points to get yourself up to a 7 out of 10. There are some disheveled, disgusting looking men who are just like walking around. Doesn't matter if they're a bit bigger or a bit skinny, or that they're always rocking a 7.5 or 8 out of 10 in terms of sex appeal. What is that? It's confusing. Is it kind of just just kind of like almost like a rebellious attitude? It's like, when someone is, let's say you're under the 5 out of 10 ranking, but you are kind of, you start panicking about it. You're like, how do I bump up my score here? And it creates like a nervousness around you. You've got like a nervous aura, and it almost draws more attention to the fact of like where you're fitting on the scale. Whereas if you're kind of like elegantly oblivious to your number, you are a 4, but it's like trying to describe numbers to a caterpillar or something. It's like, I do not care about your rating system. Oh. And that's very attractive, I think, to both sexes. Someone who's oblivious. And those people, it's like, they could be wearing a fucking old polo shirt, but it sits well on them somehow. You're like, fuck, how are they doing that? For me, I really have to think it through in terms of what I'm wearing. And other people can just pull it together. I guess my theory here is that, like, these people who walk amongst us, the Frenchmen and honorary Frenchmen all over the globe, they must kind of be descended from men who are just kind of hell-bent on getting laid. Like, that's their primary goal in life. You know how kind of like you look at your life and you're like, even if you're a horny young man, you kind of look at like life is spent living, and then you've got your 2% of your time where you get to get your end off. Maybe for these guys it's the other way around. It's like they're just kind of like wandering around. They're like day walkers essentially, where it's all about kind of like throwing down and doing the dance in the sand dunes. That's their primary goal. Like that's where they do 98% of their living, and everything else, like fucking going on public transport, doing their taxes, doing a barbecue, I don't know, time speeds up or something like that. They're just like, yeah, this is just nothing. That's why they've got that faraway glint in their eye, because they're thinking about living. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just kind of like it's some type of like evolutionary sexuality hangover or something. They come from a long line of dudes who like to fuck, and that's the glint that you see in the Frenchman's eye, or the honorary Frenchman. This one went off the rails. Hope you're doing well. Catch you on the next one. Bye.